Hi, I'm Sean Mabry. I'm a fantasy writer, and today I wanted to talk about Settlers of Catan, which you may have heard of if you're into the board game scene, and if not, it's this hugely popular board game with 3 to 4 players where you and the other players compete to settle a small uninhabited island and use its natural resources to build the most stuff. Now, if you have not played Catan, the rest of this video probably won't make any sense to you, but I do highly recommend the game, so go check it out now and pause the video and come back when you're done. For those of you who are familiar with Catan, I can't guarantee that you're going to win every game you play with this strategy, but it'll definitely put you in the running. I've used it successfully a few times myself, and now I am sharing it with you, and I'd be curious to hear how it works for other people. So here's how it works. If you are in a game where you have a placement phase, where you get to place your first settlements, you want to put your settlements on wheat. You want to focus on getting the best wheat spots you can. Second to that, ore and sheep are good, they're going to become important, but really focus on wheat first. And this might sound a little unusual, but I would actually recommend, if you can, placing a settlement directly on a 2-to-1 wheat port. And if you're not going to do that, at least place your settlement near enough to the wheat port that you could build there in 2 to 3 road lengths. You really don't want to build a lot of roads with this strategy, and I'll explain why in a moment. So when the game proper starts, most Catan players are going to go for the longest road segment, or the longest road card. And that, I think, is a terrible gamble. I stopped doing that very quickly as I kind of learned the deeper mechanics of Catan, because it just ends up being this very wasteful arms race, because everyone on the board is throwing down their lumber and their brick to build those roads, and then it just takes one more road segment from another player to waste all of that effort. What I do instead, and what I am recommending to you now as part of this strategy, is to almost completely ignore brick and lumber. I mean, if you need to build a third settlement to get to that port, go ahead and do it. But aside from that, you're just going to go full on with the wheat and ore. Ore is probably the second most important. But what you're going to do turn by turn specifically is get development cards. You want to get as many development cards as you can. Now, the most obvious benefit to this is that you're going to get a lot of knight cards, and you can use that to have the largest army, which I do recommend, try to maintain that. I mean, you're going to keep building these cards throughout the game, so you're kind of naturally going to get a ton of knights and probably beat anyone else going for the knight strategy. But that's not even necessarily the coolest part of the strategy. The thing that's really cool is that by going this route, and by focusing on wheat, and by having that wheat port, like I mentioned, you can pretty much minimize your dependence on other players and avoid most of the direct competition that other players are going to get stuck with. So when you do, because obviously you will get some brick and lumber, just trade it. You don't need it. Trade it for more wheat, or trade it for whatever other resource you need at the moment. And if you follow all these steps correctly, and especially if you upgrade your settlements to cities on those wheat tiles, you're going to get to this point where you are just a wheat powerhouse, and your hand is just flooding with wheat cards. And at that point, you pretty much run the game, because you can trade those wheats for whatever the resource you need. And you don't even have to trade to other players. You can just trade to the bank. And by the way, this works also if you have a 3-to-1 generic port. Obviously a 2-to-1 wheat port is a better deal, but the 3-to-1 is useful for this too. And again, just keep going for those development cards. Hopefully if you build enough, you'll get some victory point cards, which I did not realize until a few games in that those actually stack, so you can flip over multiples at once. And then you got it. It's your game. So try that out. I'd be curious, let me know if that works for you. Like I said, I've had some success with the strategy on my own. I'd be curious to see if anyone else can replicate it successfully. And if you enjoyed this video, like, comment, share, subscribe, and thank you for watching. See you next time.